Hello and welcome back to the Ghost of Alcantra. I'm really not quite sure what to expect from the story at this point, so let's just get right back into it. July 11th, 1987. I didn't have any trouble getting back into my room since I used the wheelbarrow that was left out in the front lawn as a step hold to get back onto the roof. Hopefully my parents wouldn't wonder why the wheelbarrow changed locations during the night. Thankfully, both of my parents and Uncle Kyle are heavy sleepers, so they didn't hear me kicking our house as I hoisted myself onto the roof. I plopped back into my bed, far too excited to sleep, and already thinking about tomorrow night. Eventually, I went to sleep and woke up in the middle of the afternoon, where I bided my time till nightfall and made my way out of the house from the rooftop again. That kicked off the most magical week of my life. The murders? An afterthought. My friends and family? I've had lots of excuses about how depressed I was. Sleeping? Not doing much of that. I was a zombie 20 hours of the day. I only lived between midnight and 4 a.m. At least that's what it felt like. And it was wonderful. The toughest part was trying to act depressed during the day. I had to pretend that I was heartbroken around others when I was having the most fun in my life. I'm no good at acting, so I mostly kept myself cooped up in my room, reading Emma and To Kill a Mockingbird. I smuggled coffee into my room to help me stay awake till midnight. I also bought a flashlight to make nighttime walking a little easier. My only worry was Uncle Kyle, because he sometimes returned home late at night. I had to be a little careful. But he was so tired when he came back that as long as I didn't do anything particularly stupid while leaving, he would be pretty easy to avoid. Then, when midnight came, I was racing into the night to see Alexandria. It used to be me showing her Alcantra during the day. Now she showed me Alcantra at night. Alexandria had determined that she would be the guide. She liked studying maps and then marking locales she thought could be interesting. We mostly stayed outside of the residential part of town. Oh, interesting. I thought when they said to meet up at that one spot where they watch the stars that they would just stay there, but they're actually walking around? Okay. We'd meet at the clearing on the hill near her place, and then we'd go trekking into the woods to the next spot she had determined would be romantic enough for our midnight roaming. My favorite location she picked was an abandoned farm that was a great place to view fireflies. She was being a nerd about the whole thing.
This is amazing! You know, we're really lucky we get to see this. The species around here mostly glow at dusk. I wonder why they're glowing so late.
Just putting on a romantic show for us.
Actually, the glow is for trying to attract mates. So they're really doing the same thing as us right now.
Are you comparing us to bugs?
We're just as small and insignificant as they are.
You really love your romantic lines, don't you? Says you. Sometimes we just sat on the hill where we met and talked about looking up at the stars. And talked while looking up at the stars. We talk about Emma and To Kill a Mockingbird, and I do my best to keep up with Alexandria's analysis. She never played easy with me, and I appreciated that about her. Just because I wasn't as well read as her doesn't mean that I had to be dumb. Whether it was teasing or being serious, I always had to be a little bit on my toes with her. I like that. They say that being in a relationship is about being comfortable, and it was with her. But it was never complacent. It made every interaction, silly or serious, meaningful. We'd also talk about ourselves. Alexandria didn't like talking about her past much, which was understandable. So I spent a lot of time telling her about my childhood in Alcantra, how I met Warburton and Terence, and some of the shenanigans we got up to. She always laughed at my stories. She got a particular kick from the story about the time Warburton wrote a love letter and put it in a girl's locker.
A love letter? That is so cute.
It was so stupid. This was This was just last year, before his crush on Jenny. It was a girl who ran hurdles and track this time. She didn't like him at all.
Don't be mean, Nick. It takes a lot of courage to put your feelings out there.
True. Yeah, well, you know Warburton. When he does something, he goes all in. The letter was so over the top and flamboyant that the girl just laughed while reading it. Oof. She was going to share it with everyone, and he was going to become the laughingstock of the school. So, Terence and I faked a fight to distract everyone.
You what?
Well, I say we faked the fight. We were actually throwing fists. So we faked a fight by fighting. You know how guys are.
I don't think I do. Guys sound stupid.
That's true. Anyway, once we had a big crowd around us, Warburton snatched back the letter from the girl and tore it up, tears all over his face.
Who won the fight?
I didn't see what that had to do with anything. Probably Terence. Alexandria scoffed, unimpressed with me. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Still waiting on the loving part.
I gave her a look, then decided it was best to ignore that. After Warburton tore up the letter, he gave a big speech in front of everyone about how great we were and how he would love us forever, and that he'd swear off girls eternally. Then everyone gossiped that we were gay for the rest of the year. Alexandria laughed a lot at that. Sometimes I talked about some of my more personal feelings about things. I tried to tell her why I invited her to the fireworks, why I was such an optimist about human connection, though it always felt hollow when I said it out loud. It wasn't something you could easily talk about, it was more something you lived. It's like, and Terence doesn't understand this, that even though people are stuck in their own heads literally, we managed to overcome that somehow. When I invited you to the fireworks, I knew I couldn't actually show you what I saw, but I thought, well, that I managed to show you a part of my world with those fireworks. Never mind, that was cheesy, forget that. Alexandria laughed.
I feel the same way. Remember the first time we went downtown together? I told you that I love the story of Alcantra. I think stories do the same thing you're describing. There are many ways to bridge the gap between people. She leaned in towards me. Hopefully we've managed to bridge the gap between us as well. It was romantic until she flicked me on the forehead. From your world to mine, from my world to yours. The doofus and the princess, the detective and her assistant. Two worlds collide. I rubbed my head. Sure that just wasn't your finger and my head colliding? Well, that too.
Alexandria also introduced me to star tipping, which we would do on our meeting hill. She explained to me that star tipping was a game where you look up at a star and then spin around as fast as you can while still looking at the star. After you do that, you wait 30 seconds and then someone shines a flashlight into your eye. The person instantly gets knocked over, hence the tipping part of the name. We played our own version without the flashlight part. Then we'd lay on our backs laughing, looking at the stars, while our heads thought we were still spinning. I'm getting dizzy just imagining it. It was like falling upward into a sea of stars. Out of control, I spun faster and faster. I gripped Alexandria's hand tighter. I raced toward the night sky, shining, glimmering, dazzling. The lights raced back toward me. Running with you, talking with you, holding hands with you, and spinning with you. All the things we did came rushing back to me as we fell into those stars. And I fell. Fell deeper in love with you, Alexandria. Lovely. For a moment there I expected someone to literally fall. but okay. July 18th, 1997. Everyone thought that I was so good at running away, it was time to prove them right. Forget the murders of 1987, forget the murders of 1997, forget about the past, forget about now, forget about Detective Storm, forget about the Ghost of Alcantra, and forget dying. I'm getting out of here. I'm running away. I'm letting the people of Alcantra beat me. The insane torture they devised together worked. Either I took the permanent escape of death, or I took the less permanent escape of running away. I would try the latter first. If that didn't work out, then death was better than staying here. Heading east would probably be my best bet. There's a bigger town about 2 hours away by car that I could hide in. I'll pack a bag with food and water and see if I can get there. Maybe I could get lucky and secure a ride via hitchhiking. I checked the house for Detective Storm, prepared for a fight, but she wasn't in. It looked like she had gone to work. I didn't even know if she was really a detective or if that was just a role she was playing to fool me. I mean, she kind of alluded to that, didn't she? I'm going to run away and no one is going to stop me. Just watch. She made a mistake leaving me unsupervised. My most recent nightmare had pushed me over the edge and I was done with it all. There's no point in trying to make sense of this world. I'm giving up. Who cares who I was? I would take this amnesia as an opportunity. I ran to Detective Storm's room and found a backpack. I emptied it out and ran downstairs and filled the backpack with snacks and water from the fridge. I ran through the house scavenging what I could. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any money beyond what she had given me already. In half an hour, I was out of the house. I didn't feel the slightest bit bad about stealing Detective Storm's stuff. She was just as bad as the rest of the townspeople, maybe even worse. You know, I can't really blame him with everything that's been going on so far. I didn't have a plan in case someone tried to stop me, but fortunately, nobody tried. Given the backpack, I couldn't run very fast, so I had to jog awkwardly. It would take a while to get out of here, and likely several days of walking to get to the town I was heading towards. I had enough food and water to last a couple of days, but I was going to have to figure out how to get money to survive once I reached my destination. I probably wasn't cut out for living off the land entirely. Nobody stopped me, but they all looked at me. People were always looking at me in this damn town. Then why don't you try to stop me? Aren't I your murderer? Can't you not forgive me? What's the point of all your stupid games, all your attempts to drive me insane, if you're going to let me just waltz right out of here? But it was business as usual. The same suspicious glares and glances. Well, the games between us were over. Fuck them. I ignored their looks and kept making my way to the east exit of town. Was I really going to be able to survive? Probably not. The lack of practicality to what I was doing kicked in, but I really didn't care. The details were secondary to getting the fuck out of here. I just wanted to be free. Be free. Let's face it, I'll never be free. Eventually, I saw the edge of town, marked by a sign. I wasn't happy with the time I was making. It had taken me a little over 45 minutes to get here. The rate I was going, I'd be dead before I even got halfway to my destination. I was going so slow that the police could have set up a barricade to stop me from leaving if they wanted. Thankfully, there was no one here. Just 100 more meters, and I'd be out of here. I jogged up to the sign. I thought of what I had in Alcantara. I had nothing. No allies, no friends, no family members. Alcantra may have been home for me at one point, but it wasn't anymore. It was a prison. Was I ever going to find a home again? Somewhere I belonged? I'd be okay. Home is where the heart is. Even without a family, even without friends or allies, I'd create my own home. Being alone doesn't mean you're not where you belong. As long as there was a single ember of resolve left within me, a flame could grow from that. I could be okay all on my own. I reached the edge of Alcantra, stared at the sign marking the edge of the city limits, and took a deep breath. I then walked past the sign. Or I tried to. I couldn't get past the sign. I tried again. I hit a wall? I tried again, and once again, I hit something. I looked ahead. There was no wall, just more road and trees. What was stopping me? I tentatively reached my hand out and couldn't move it a millimeter past the sign. There was something there, something you couldn't see, like a barrier. How the hell could there be an invisible barrier? There's no such thing as invisible walls. What was going on? Is it another nightmare? Or are we in a video game? I ran into that wall over and over. Did the townspeople do this? Had they erected some disguised exit out of town? That wasn't possible, but I thought them conspiring against me wasn't possible either. I had to believe anything was possible in this town. I went about 100 meters to the left of the sign and then tried to cross. No luck. I did the same to the right of the sign. No luck. There was simply no way of leaving Alcantra this way. You can't leave anyway. That's what Detective Storm had told me. I thought she had meant that metaphorically. She meant it literally? Was it simply impossible for me to leave? I dropped the bag. It would only slow me down, and I didn't care about surviving. If I died a step past Alcantra, so be it, as long as I wasn't here. I made for the opposite end of town towards the west exit. They couldn't make invisible barriers around the whole town. That's not possible. It's not possible. It's not possible. There's no way, right? I ran, and 20 minutes later, I was facing the west exit of Alcantra. I ran full steam at the openness that signified that there was a world that existed beyond Alcantra. I failed once again. I ran into a barrier. It didn't hurt. It wasn't like running into a brick wall, but I couldn't get past it. Every time I tried, I just stopped. I explored the left and right of the highway. I knew it was going to be pointless, and it was. Detective Storm was right. I couldn't leave Alcantra. How? There's no way. There's just no way. I slumped over against the invisible barrier behind me. I wanted to cry, to scream. My situation had always been weird. Things had been suspicious from the start. The hospital let me go too easily. Detective Storm treated me too conveniently. The messages were too deliberate. This was all too strange to not be a setup. But this? The hell was this supposed to be? Was I in some sort of experiment? They built a giant invisible dome around me and are experimenting on me? Who the fuck is they? The government? The people responsible for my torture? Was I brainwashed into amnesia? Even the most convoluted sci-fi scenarios would make more sense than this. The alternative was that I was crazy. So fucking delusional that this whole thing was in my head. Invisible barriers, amnesia, messages to me, paranoia of townspeople. I was just gone. This whole thing isn't real, and I'm prone to madness. Could someone save me? But who? And how? Am I either batshit insane or a subject in some weird torture? Who could save me in either scenario? There was still one more possibility. that my situation involved the supernatural. I had been trying to forget about the Ghost of Alcantra, but maybe that was a mistake. My dreams told me she wanted to meet me. My dreams told me I wanted to meet her. Maybe she was the one who set this all up. I didn't know what ghosts were capable of. Maybe they could create barriers and turn people against someone. If this was all the work of the Ghost of Alcantra, then of course she wouldn't let me run away. Since my time waking up in that hospital, I had been continuously finding new lows for myself. My mind started fracturing, then I wanted to die, then I tried to run away from everything. However, I was at my lowest now. I was giving up on giving up. I stayed slumped against that invisible barrier until the sun started to go down. I watched the cars drive by, doing their best to avoid hitting me since I was sitting in the middle of the road. Nobody yelled at me to get off the road. I guess everyone in town was waiting for me to return. I bet they were going to laugh at my attempt to run away. Who cares anyway? I didn't care about anything anymore. Staying sane, going crazy, it didn't matter. Living, dying, that didn't matter either. If I was in an experiment, my fate was out of my hands. If I was crazy, it was too late for me now. If this was the work of a ghost, well, I'd have to wait for her to do something. I lost the will to do anything. Escaping Alcantara had been my last hope. That hope was now gone. I suppose I could try and kill myself, but that was a lot of work, and I figured I wouldn't be able to anyway. I was incapable of dying in my last nightmare, and I had a feeling it would be the same here. This wasn't normal reality. Yeah, it really isn't. Or are we really just delusional? This is all very, very strange. I got up and started making my way slowly back to Detective Storm's house, assuming the worst was still to come. It was well after sunset by the time I returned to Detective Storm's house. It dawned on me that I had left her backpack filled with all sorts of things by the east exit of town, which was a silly thing to worry about. I had bigger problems than my theft. The door was unlocked when I arrived. I walked in, and sitting on the couch amidst all the mess I had made was Detective Storm, sipping from a wine glass while she watched some sitcom on the TV. She stuck her tongue out at me when she noticed me. "Gee, I was looking forward to having some peace and quiet around here, and you're back already. Didn't even mind the place being trashed if it meant some quality me time." I didn't say anything in response. I wasn't in the mood for jokes. She was wearing a sinister grin that I had seen a lot of over these past 2 months. I hadn't thought much of them beyond attributing them to Detective Storm's personality. I now realized that they had less to do with her and more to do with my situation. "I told you that you couldn't leave." She shrugged her shoulders and looked up at her ceiling. "And you didn't listen." "Be honest with me. Is this all in my head?" She burst out laughing. I didn't see what was so funny. "Now you're catching on, but not quite. I'd say more like your soul." "What does that mean?" "Well, a little more going on than you just being crazy. I can tell you that you're not in some sort of weird experiment. I know you were fretting about that earlier." "So you can read minds?" "Only yours." You know, that's the second time someone has told me that. I must have a very readable mind. You might consider why your mind is so readable to those around you. She sipped on her wine. "How was your dream last night?" She even knew about my dreams. "Not great. You didn't help with that." "It's not like I wanted to be there either, Victor. Moody atmosphere, crappy dance partner. Shitty time, to be honest." "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" Why I'm the girl of your dreams? Hell if I know, Victor. About what the fuck is going on for all of this. It'll all be clear soon enough. I'm your appointed guide, and we're almost to the destination. Just one more event, one big realization, and you'll be ready to face what happened. And we'll be done here. I suppose you won't tell me what you're guiding me to? Absolutely not. I believe you've been told this already, but it's meaningless unless you do this on your own. I'll help you at the end, though. So is Victor just dead and this is our way to, like, the afterlife or something? Purgatory? What's going on? However, I can tell you that of the 3 options you considered in regards to your situation, the second and the third were pretty close. So I'm not being experimented on, which means this is in my head and the work of a ghost. Well, in my soul or whatever, and the work of the Ghost of Alcantra. Bingo. That's pretty close. So you're telling me I'm having hallucinations caused by a ghost who doesn't like me. None of this is real then? Whether or not it's real is up to you. I'm tired of these fucking riddles. Well, good for you. They're almost over. Like I said, one big event left, and afterwards I'll walk you through what you already know. I only know what you know after all. You're almost ready. She waggled her wine glass at me. And what is this big event, Victor? The 3rd murder. Ivana Rivers, the daughter of Marcella Rivers, will be killed. You're a detective. Aren't you supposed to prevent that? She laughed. You know I can't do that. It's destined to happen. How is it destined? You already know. And I just told you, I only know what you know. She was right. I did know. I don't know how, but I did. Because of the murders in 1987. That's right. And where does the 3rd murder take place? In the ballroom of the events center. It sure does. How does she die? Her neck is broken. Yep. When is this going to happen? Tomorrow, July 19th. That's right. You'll figure things out tomorrow. Now, you've had a rough day. You better get some rest. After all, we want you in good shape for tomorrow. I guess that was my cue that she wasn't going to tell me anymore. I just went along with whatever now, not giving a shit, but I wanted to try and ask one more question. You're not really a detective, are you? I must know you from somewhere, and what you're doing now is just playing the role of a detective until the end of this big event or whatever. I'm as real as fake detectives go, Victor. Which was not a particularly helpful answer. Okay. July 19th, 1997. Detective Storm and I arrived at the events center across the bridge in Hamatra in the early afternoon. On the surface, it looked like we were attending a community event. In reality, we were here for a murder. I recalled that in 1987 this had been a semi-formal event where people had been dressed up, but Detective Storm and I didn't bother. You looked better in the nightmare. I told her that as I got out of the car to annoy her. She made a face. You look like trash as always. Glad we got along so well. This was all formality. The end result had long been predetermined. We registered at the reception desk and made our way to the main event in the ballroom. Walking through the hallway, I remembered that the doors leading to other rooms in this hallway were supposed to be locked. I knew that they weren't, and that the killer would take advantage of that. My recollections were so much more vivid for this murder than the other 2. With the previous murder, I had just remembered the general details of the murders, but for this one, I also knew specifics. Stepping into the ballroom, it was all as I remembered how it had been in 1987. The tables were aligned the same way as in 1987. Unlike my nightmare, nobody was dancing, just milling around and talking. Detective Storm grabbed a plate and started loading it up with food. The murder wasn't going to happen for a couple of hours, which made coming this early seem stupid. She responded to me as if she could read my mind, which I guess she could. We're being proper about this. You were here this early last time. She was right. I had the feeling I was here for some time before the murder happened. Well, we don't need to get all the details exact. You know what the end result is going to be anyway. We might as well talk. I know you have plenty to ask. Will you really answer my questions? She shrugged while munching on crackers topped with a variety of different cheeses. Depends on the question. Okay, how about we start at the beginning? Good idea. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, and that's with me waking up with amnesia in the hospital. Everyone said my amnesia was psychological, that I had caused it, but it's actually caused by the Ghost of Alcantra, right? Oh no, we weren't lying about that. Your amnesia was definitely caused by you. What? But I thought the Ghost of Alcantra was behind all this. Well, kind of. That's more or less true. It was never a straight answer with her. So, my amnesia is caused by me. Why would I do that? Do I have something I want to forget? That's an understatement. You won't tell me what I'm forgetting. Absolutely not. That defeats the purpose. What purpose? For you to remember. Oh, yes, of course. How could I forget? Victor, this whole thing is because of you. Your amnesia, the murders, it's all you. I remembered Elaine Weatherton had told me something similar. But what about the Ghost of Alcantra then? I'll let her answer for herself on that. You'll meet her soon enough. I grabbed some salami and crackers to put up on my plate. I needed the comfort of snacks to deal with this frustration. Let's move on from the amnesia then. This whole thing, it's a setup, right? Yes. Nice to finally get a straight answer. The hospital letting me out was your doing? Of course. No legitimate hospital would ever let a patient with your amnesia out. The whole town is in on this. It was funny that I had once considered that idea and concluded the thought was ridiculous. What is this? How would you describe this whole thing, Victor? Fucking terrible. Well, true, I imagine it is. But be more specific. You've thought it several times. I knew what she was getting at. It's like a torture. Ding ding ding. Exactly right. It's like a torture. So this thing the whole town is on, it's a torture? A torture for me? Yep, that's probably the best way to describe it. So the wallet and the message replacing my ID, the townspeople, the weird messages sent to me over the last couple of months. All part of the process to make this whole thing succeed. It wouldn't be a torture otherwise. Rattling and unsettling, right? This whole thing is a targeted attack meant to tear you down, to bring out your guilt and insecurities, then use those to suffocate you. Suffocate is one way to put it. I had spent so much time trying to reason logically about that stupid message in my wallet, when the whole thing was just a scam to try and make me feel like shit. Well, the scam succeeded. But this would have to mean... Wait. My god, you're dense. Yes, you're in on it. You're more than in on it. You're the cause of all this. I let her angrily eat her crackers. Something still wasn't adding up. Enough questions about your amnesia and your role. You'll find out soon enough. I'm just answering some of your questions to save time later. Wouldn't want to drop everything on you all at once. I know better than most that your psyche is unstable. Is that why your behavior was always so convenient? Who the hell are you calling convenient? That's not what I meant. I meant you were goading at first, maybe almost instigative, but when I needed you to be nice, you were convenient in treating me how I needed to be treated. That was part of my job. We couldn't have you falling apart too quickly. If you gave up too early, then what would follow wouldn't have much impact. That was my job as the guide, to guide you through this torture, to keep you together until you're allowed to fall apart. Gee, thanks. You're welcome. So, let me see if I have this straight. The Ghost of Alcantra is getting involved with me because of things I did in my past. That's right. I caused my own amnesia in whatever psychological torture chamber she's got me in. Yep, you did. And in the psychological torture chamber, the townspeople are all in a plot to recreate the events of 1987. It sounded stupid when said aloud, but it felt right. From the very beginning, something about all this had been off. It was almost a relief that this wasn't real, at least not real in the sense I was familiar with. Sounds about right. She responded through a mouthful of cheese. You guys did a pretty good job. You guys? You're the one who did all this. What was she talking about? I just gave myself amnesia. What else did I do? I told you already, you're the cause of all this. Everyone keeps telling me it's all my fault and that I caused all this, but no one will ever tell me what I did. Like I told you, that's the point. She grabbed another plate. How many plates of cheese can you eat? A lot. Why don't you leave me alone to eat in peace? I'm going to have enough of this to do later today. Go around and talk to other people. You'll find that they're more accommodating than usual. I glanced around the room. She was right. No one was glaring or looking at me suspiciously. In fact, no one was looking at me at all. Everyone was minding their own business. Go ahead. It'll be your last chance at normalcy for a while. Well, that's not foreboding at all. Yeah, I'll go do that. What the hell? I just feel like, not to spoil any other games that also play in a small town where it sounds like we're kind of doing that whole purgatory thing. Okay, weird. She deserved a break from me anyway. I spent the next hour going around to different tables. I didn't really chat, but nobody seemed to mind. There wouldn't have been much to talk about anyway. Hi, how are you all enjoying torturing me today? But going around made it all the more apparent to me. These weren't real people. They were simply fulfilling roles. I can't believe I never noticed. Since the hospital, the only people I met with any personality were Detective Storm and Elaine Weatherton. Everyone else I interacted with was bland and automaton-like. I should have been suspicious, not by their suspicion of me, but by the fact that no one had any defining characteristic beside their suspicion of me. They existed only to make me feel like I was a murderer. I waited for the time of the murder to approach. When it drew near, I met up with Detective Storm on the outskirts of a crowd gathering around a drunk older fellow who was having the time of his life telling some story. But this wasn't genuine, this was a recreation. In a few minutes, while everyone was watching this guy, a scream would ring out and they would discover the body of Ivana Rivers. Ivana Rivers? That wasn't right. It was someone else. I see you're finally remembering. Remember who died first? Marcella Rivers. The name is familiar, right?
It was very familiar. I had felt that when I heard the name. Marcella Rivers. M.R. M.R. In 1987, it was Marina Radic who died, and her daughter was the third victim. It was Elisha Radic who was killed here. Ivana Rivers, Elisha Radic, I.R.
That's right.
And Beatrice Jameston, B&J. Beryl Johnson was the victim in 1987. I was familiar with the murders because I was there for them in 1987. I'm the murderer.
Detective Storm looked at me like I was dumb. You think you murdered Marina Radic, Beryl Johnson, and Elisha Radic?
Of course. Why else would I be going through all of this? Why else would you all give me those messages?
Oh, don't be stupid. You're not the murderer of 1987. You just think you're responsible for them. Well, at least 2 of them.
I'm not the murderer?
Of course not. The murders of 1987 were so obvious that everyone knew who did it. It wasn't a mystery, it was a case of someone very powerful getting away with something they shouldn't have.
Then, who was I? And what did the Ghost of Alcantra want with me? Who was the Ghost of Alcantra?
Marina Radic, Beryl Johnson, or Elisha Radic? No, it wasn't any of them.
The woman I killed in my first nightmare, and who appeared at the end of my third. That was the Ghost of Alcantra.
Even an idiot could figure out that the Thorn was the murderer.
The Thorns, of course. That's why I felt they were involved. A Thorn was the murderer. Then everybody pretended that they didn't remember them because of whatever the psychological torture was.
Elaine Witherton had said that bullshit about the town being replaced. She just needed some excuse. But the Thorns? I knew more than that. I knew more than that they were involved. I knew the Thorns themselves.
I knew them. The name brought me such agony, such powerful emotions. How could a name do all that to me?
Elaine didn't lie to you.
Okay, the whole town was replaced? Really?
The town was created by you. In that sense, Alcantra really was replaced. The townspeople only know what they need to. For purposes of this torture, they couldn't remember the Thorns.
That didn't make sense. The Ghost of Alcantra was behind this. I couldn't create a whole town.
Well, again, that certain other town is also kind of... Well, let's not get into that.
I'm not the murderer.
You're not.
The murderer is a Thorn.
That's right.
Then what happened to the Thorns?
She gave me a look. Is she pitying me?
And who am I?
Someone who is hurting. A person who hates themselves. A man who desperately wants to meet someone again, but thinks they can't until they suffer accordingly. She glanced at her watch. It'll all be clear soon. You know what's next. I have to pretend to do some detective work. That's right. In just a moment, a scream was going to ring out. I knew the timing well. The moment had left such an impact on me. But I'll leave you with one last thing. You said you should start with the beginning. You said we should start with the beginning. Well, we didn't. Start from the beginning, that is.
We started with the hospital and amnesia.
Wait. The beginning was that you were hit by a motorcyclist. With that, Detective Storm turned around and headed towards the exit into the hallway. Seconds later, a shriek rang out. It was a horrifying shriek, too horrifying to be authentic. It was a scream that had been cultivated from lots of practice. It was the shriek of an accomplice. She was let in through a window that was unlocked. It hadn't been just her, there was another accomplice. The murderer had help. It was 1997 now, but it had happened just like it had in 1987. As if I were God and I were commanding it to happen, the crowd of people in the ballroom began to head towards the exit, following the sound of the scream. I joined that crowd, not as an observer, but as the creator. I had once been a part of this, now I was the origin. As the one in control of this, the crowd let me pass through the exitway into the hallway. There was Detective Storm and several police officers frantically throwing open doors. I knew which door was going to reveal Ivana Rivers, or should I say, Elisha Radek. I headed over to it just as a police officer opened it and gave a shout. Detective Storm ran into the room, swiftly playing the role of detective, chasing the ghost of Detective Kyle Rage in 1987. I followed shortly behind her. I looked into the room, and there was the lifeless body of Elisha Radek. Previously, I could only imagine how the victims had looked, but I remembered this one. She was as I had left her in 1987. Her neck hung broken. She cradled the back of the chair lifelessly. It was beautiful. How else could one describe this portrait matching the one inside my head so flawlessly? Every detail of her death was replicated perfectly. There is a beauty in finding one's suspicions to be true, to find reality matching what one believes. And in this case, there could be nothing more beautiful. Okay. Detective Storm ushered me out of the room and began barking orders, an acting performance worthy of commendation. It was precisely as Detective Kyle Rage had done all those years ago. What should have been a cacophony of panic, hysteria and fear was a symphony to me. Every measure I heard was exactly as it should be, how it was originally composed. The crowd's agitation was perfectly captured in the performance that resounded throughout the hall. It was wonderful, it was magnificent, and it was all for me. The devil was to be applauded for his efforts in the recreation of the scene, not just in this scene, but for these past 2 months, this entire torture. Such convenient amnesia, who deserved it more than I? Such a convenient Alcantra, who deserved to suffer in it more than I? Such convenient murders, who deserved to relive them more than I? I smiled the broad grin of a maniac who had just realized that they were getting what they had deserved after all these years. Indeed, just as Detective Storm said, we didn't start with the beginning. This had begun with a collision with a motorcyclist. My death was the beginning of the story. What else could explain this? Only in hell could such a targeted, specific torture exist. Dead? Did a death start the story? Ooh. Yeah, as I said, I guess that makes Victor the Ghost of Alcantra. Well, not quite, but one of them. Yeah. I suppose, yeah, that kind of confirms it, right? Victor is dead, and that is kind of, maybe not hell, but purgatory? Because that's what I assume is happening, right? What Detective Storm also said, that she's showing us the way she's guiding us, so this is purgatory, and this whole torture thing is for us to remember everything and then maybe pass on? Yeah? Am I getting that right? That's the only thing that makes sense at this point, right? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. It certainly explains why everything was so strange. Like, how else would you set all of that up? Like a whole town of actors? Maybe, but then the not being able to get out of town bit, that you cannot just do unless it's completely in his head. But then they would have to really like all the other people would have to really bank on that it does work, that he really cannot leave. And how would you do that? Hypnosis? I don't know. I don't know. Very, very, very strange. Okay, let's play on for a little longer. July 18th, 1987. A week of nighttime getaways with Alexandria passed. I woke up in the middle of the afternoon today, so dinner was basically my breakfast. Uncle Kyle was eating with us. When I went down for dinner, I could hear him and my parents arguing about something. I worked my facial features to try and put on a heartbroken expression since I was supposed to be depressed. I didn't greet anyone when I sat down at the table because I figured that heartbroken people had more on their minds besides manners, but Uncle Kyle did the greeting for me as I sat down.
Nick, there's my man. Help your uncle out.
He rarely showed energy, so this was suspicious.
I was just asking your parents if they could go with me to this stupid community event tomorrow. It's a thing the town is doing to instill good spirits or whatever. Basically, a little dance party with music. I was invited and, well, it'd be awkward to turn the invitation down since it was the police chief who invited me. I want your parents to come with me so they can handle the socializing. You know, I really hate that sort of stuff.
He did hate that sort of stuff. When he was on the job, it was no problem. But anything outside of work? Well, I guess there was a reason he was single. Hey! People can still have relationships even if they are bad at socializing in general. Introverts exist. My parents had lots of stories from high school of him being an awkward mess, and apparently not much had changed. I could see why he didn't want to go. Sorry, Kyle, but like I said, we're doing an evening with the Devons down the street. Badminton and dinner. We do it every year. It's kind of our thing with them.
Like I was saying, can't you cancel or reschedule?
Then Mrs. Devons would tell everyone that we think the community event is more important than her. You know how she is.
Just tell them I'm a wreck. I'm sure she'll understand.
Man. Kyle, could you pull yourself together? For heaven's sake, your job has you confront murderers.
I'd rather face a murderer than small talk, to be completely honest.
Ooh, man after my own heart. Uncle Kyle set his sights on me.
Since your parents can't go, would you be willing, Nick?
Kyle.
The remaining suspects will be there, so at least it might be entertaining. Professor Kashak and both Thorns. I could, I don't know, do some detective work things to keep you entertained.
I couldn't care less about Professor Kashak, but the idea of meeting Alexandria's family was enticing. I wanted to know what they were like and if they matched what Alexandria had told me about them. I knew her family was aware of who I was, even if they weren't aware of what I knew. If possible, I could maybe try to make a good impression on her father. You know, just in case he wasn't a murderer. Kyle, you know I told you to leave him alone. I can't believe you.
I'm in.
What?
Great.
I came up with an excuse. You know, I've been feeling really down lately, the whole Alexandria situation and all, and I could really use a diversion, do something to keep my mind off things, you know? Uncle Kyle nodded enthusiastically.
Yes, of course, of course. It would be just the thing for you. But couldn't it be dangerous? The Thorns are killers. I mean, probably, but we don't know that for sure, and they won't pull anything at a public event. A lot of the city people will be there, and I know for a fact that several police officers will be there.
Are you going to pull something like they do in the books and movies? Like you'll round the suspects up and bam, nail the killer?
Sorry, I'm not as dramatic as the detectives in stories. I'm not sure I even have a legal license to do what you're describing unless they pull a gun and shoot someone there.
Kyle!
Sorry, Cordelia.
I was finally meeting the Thorns. I wasn't going to tell Alexandria about this because I knew she'd tell me to stay away. She thought her brother was dangerous. But I'd be with Uncle Kyle, and he was right. There was no way the Thorns could pull something off in as public a space as the event center. This was an opportunity that wasn't to be missed. Okay, with what we learned before of the murder that's going to take place, and there being accomplices, that almost sounds like maybe the Thorns want to gain an alibi by that. Like maybe they want to show, oh, we're here and the murder's taking place, so it's not us that's doing it, you know, that kind of thing. Or am I reaching? So you want me to handle the socializing?
Exactly.
I smiled at Uncle Kyle. Leave it to me. July 19th, 1987. This sad excuse for community outreach was held in the ballroom of the events center, which was just across the bridge. Uncle Kyle drove us in his Camaro. He told me on the ride that there was going to be a lot of people, since everyone invited was allowed to bring guests. I thought it was kind of silly that Alcantra and Hamacha were having a community event after 2 murders, but Uncle Kyle told me that the event was in response to the murders. It was an event meant to rebuild community spirit in trying times, or something like that. We arrived at the parking lot around mid-afternoon. Uncle Kyle looked like he'd rather be anywhere else.
Why didn't you just say no? Because turning people down is even harder.
This man didn't like his job, hated socializing, didn't sleep, and hated turning people down. Must be a rough life. I dragged him over toward the entrance. At the reception desk, I told them Detective Kyle Rage and his nephew were here. Uncle Kyle cowered behind me as best as a grown man hiding behind a teenager can, and we walked down the hall towards the ballroom. There were lots of rooms on each side of the hallway.
You could try hiding in one of these rooms.
Uncle Kyle nodded thoughtfully.
That's not a bad idea. Probably locked though.
Well, there's always the bathroom.
I'll consider that when I'm desperate enough.
At least we're looking out for him. Exit strategies. Okay, I almost didn't expect us to go right into the event, but okay. We walked into the ballroom. The room was massive and had circular tables spread all over the place. Lots of snack-type foods were on the tables. Staff were walking around carrying a variety of different beverages. It was very unimpressive given the status of the people here. Of course, I typically didn't get invited to these sorts of things. The room was filled with mostly middle-aged to older people standing around holding plates of food and talking. A very Midwestern sort of social event. Nothing more evil and horrible than a party where small talk was the main event. Oh, yeah. I could understand Uncle Kyle's feelings. 100%. Some classical waltz was playing for music, giving the event a much more formal tone than it likely deserved. I looked at Uncle Kyle, who was turning a rather strange shade of green and shaking. How's this for a game plan? We start at that table there, and we get you a plate full of food. Then you just follow me and say hello and nod your head every once in a while. Uncle Kyle nodded, though I don't think he was going to be able to stomach any food. We walked over to the nearest table, and I loaded his plate with an assortment of cheeses, crackers, fruits, and meats. That should keep him busy. Couldn't talk if your mouth was full all the time. While Uncle Kyle determinedly stared down at his plate to avoid making eye contact with anyone, I began scanning the room for Alga and Vlade Thorn. I hadn't met either of them personally, but I knew what they both looked like. Vlade was easy to find. Our first glance at them, fun. He was surrounded by a decent-sized crowd. I continued scanning the room trying to find Elgar, but I couldn't find him. Uncle Kyle was being more observant than he acted because he came to the same conclusion as me.
I guess Elga decided not to show up. Vlad has been doing most of the public appearances for the family.
I guess you're pretty well acquainted with them now.
Not really. I've talked a couple of times with both. Vlad seems nice enough and Elga is quite the grouch, but I didn't get much from them.
Of course not. I'd have to settle for talking with Vlad. I started slowly working my way toward him. I didn't want to make it too obvious that I wanted to speak with him, but I wanted to be there when the crowd around him started to thin. I don't have a good feeling about this. I mean, Alexandria told us to stay away, I guess from... Did you say the whole family? I mean, it's safer for us probably to stay away from the whole family, but especially Vlad, right? Unfortunately, Uncle Kyle was more popular than I thought, and lots of people bombarded us, and I had to play social games for Uncle Kyle. I guess being a detective from a bigger city makes you quite the local celebrity. Detective Rage, how's the case going?
Mr. Rage, good to see you. Keeping the town safe, huh?
Mr. Detective, how you doing? You know, I got this great little fishing haul.
Hey dude, didn't we go to high school together?
Uncle Kyle stuck to my pre-arranged script and I did the talking for us. Most folk around here are happy to talk to anyone, so when I did the responding for Uncle Kyle, they were happy to chat with me. Uncle Kyle pretended to eat his food. How about you try grabbing a drink? Might ease your nerves. Who knows, might even help you talk?
It wouldn't do to have the detective drinking during the afternoon.
Really? Seems like that would be celebrated around here. A balding, fatter gent looking awkwardly out of place waddled over to us. Uncle Kyle adopted a more serious expression.
Hello, Professor Kashak. Hello, Detective Rage. I thought I'd stop and say hello.
He was a very nervous sort of man, constantly sweating and fiddling with his hands.
This is my nephew, Nick Fox.
Hello, Dr. Kashak. It's nice to meet you.
Hi. No need for the doctor part. I'm retired. I'm, an acquaintance of your uncle.
That was one way of saying that you were a suspect.
So, are you enjoying the party?
He jumped, surprised that I addressed him.
Oh, yes, it's a lovely event. I was invited by the former dean of the college. Sorry, I'm just a little jumpy.
He looked over at Uncle Kyle.
Have you considered what I said?
Uncle Kyle gave him a stern frown.
I haven't.
But
you won't solve the case otherwise.
Uncle Kyle gave him a glare and shushed him. Dr. Kashak jumped again and started fiddling with his fingers.
No, Dr. Kashak, I don't believe in ghosts.
Dr. Kashak thought ghosts were going to solve the case.
But I still hear her, Marina. It's almost like she's there.
Uncle Kyle jutted his head at me, then towards another table, but I stayed put. I wanted to hear this. Uncle Kyle just sighed at my disobedience.
We've already been over this, Dr. Kashak. Your doctor thinks this is just a psychological phenomenon related to grief about her death.
In my head?
No, it's definitely more than that. She's haunting me. And how is her haunting you supposed to help the investigation?
She tells me she won't rest. She's always saying he did it.
Yes, you've told me this already.
Dr. Kashak looked around, looking extremely frightened.
She tells me that Vlad Thorn killed her.
I tensed up at hearing that, but Uncle Kyle just rolled his eyes. He leaned in and whispered to Dr. Kashak.
Listen, Dr. Kashak, we all think that, and for good reason. It doesn't have to do with any visions you're having. Even if you were right, it's not like I can use the testimony of a ghost for evidence.
But... Dr. Kashak looked like he was about to cause a scene any minute, which prompted Detective Rage into action. He grabbed Dr. Kashak's arm and began dragging him to another table. I recognized the police chief at the table they were heading towards. I started to follow them, but Detective Rage jutted his head firmly at another table. I ignored him and kept walking. He jutted his head again with more force, testing the structural limits of his neck. I got the message. I headed towards another table. You know, I just got the thing with Detective Rage and Detective Storm. Sure. I grumbled to myself while piling my plate with salami and crackers. I didn't believe in ghosts, but what Dr. Kashak said was still interesting to think about. Your uncle looks like he's having fun. I turned around and nearly spat out all of my crackers. Speak of the devil, it was flayed thorn. I was face to face with a potential murderer. To be honest, he didn't look like one. He had an amused look on his face. I remembered Alexandria's warnings about him. She told me that he was fake. I glanced over at Uncle Kyle, who was talking to the police chief with Dr. Kashak. Well, this was the goal for today. I gulped. Still, it would have been nice to have a detective for support. For sure.
Yeah, well, socializing events like this aren't really his thing. He laughed. Sorry. Sorry, we haven't been introduced yet. I'm Blade Thorn.
And of course his name is purple, just like Victor's, which was the very first guess we had, right? That Victor might be Blade. But is this the type of guy who goes crazy because of guilt? Not so far as we've been told, and it might just be one big red herring, might have been one from the start. I smiled warily. I'm Nick Fox.
Yeah, I figured you must be, watching Detective Rage cower behind you.
He gave a knowing sort of grin.
Your uncle and I are pretty well acquainted these days.
Sounds rough, I guess. I mean, the reason you're well acquainted with my uncle.
Yep, sure is a pain. Not that I blame him, or blame the cops. Check them out over there. They've been watching me like a hawk the whole time. I get it. I'd suspect the Thorns too.
That's so.
Sure, we're guilty of all sorts of things.
I nearly spat out my crackers again. Blade just smiled.
Our MO is making money and ruining lives. We deal in corruption, bribery, and rigging things in our favor. I don't blame anyone for suspecting us. Should you, be telling me this? Probably not. I mean, everyone knows, but I suppose I'd get in trouble for admitting it. Tell you this, kid. Here's the moral of the story. Don't trust rich people. You gotta be a little nasty to make the amount of money the Thorns have.
I figured he was saying this to seem like he was a good guy in my eyes. However, I had the suspicion that he believed some of what he was saying. So, Mr. Thorn, what sort of nasty things should I avoid doing? He raised an eyebrow at me.
Mister?
Yes?
Do I look old enough to be a mister?
Not really, but it'd be kind of weird to call you Blade.
The fuck? It's a cool name.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh yeah, it's a cool name. Way cooler than Nick. But no offense, Mr. Thorn, I'm not the type of guy who can go around calling you Blade.
He opened his mouth to respond, but another voice responded first. I wouldn't mind calling you Blade. A young woman with long brown hair and a risky sort of dress came walking towards us. I didn't recognize her. She had a bright smile and didn't seem intimidated at all that she was talking to the heir of the Thorns.
Miss Raddick, correct?
Miss Raddick? Oh, he must mean Alicia, Marina Raddick's daughter. She seemed positively chipper for someone whose mother was murdered recently. Yes, I'm Alicia Raddick. It's nice to meet you, Blade. She turned her bright smile towards me. And you are?
I'm Nick Fox.
It's so nice to meet you too. Flate and I glanced at each other. I think we were both thrown off by her.
Miss Reddick, can we help you with something?
She fluttered her eyes at Blade. Well, I was just thinking, we're in a ballroom and no one is dancing. I was thinking that we could maybe liven things up. She looked at him expectantly. I knew Elisha was around 19, so I guess she wasn't that young to be trying to make a move on Blade. I mean, I got it, he's a lot of money.
I'm sorry, Miss Reddick, the Thorns aren't running the event. We were just invited.
Oh, don't worry about that, Blade. We don't need permission to dance. She put her hand on his arm, looking up at him with her best come-hither eyes. Blade put on a smile, even I could tell was forced, and called over a waiter and then asked for some drinks. He took the glasses off the tray and handed them to us, making sure to hand Elisha and I non-alcoholic beverages. I immediately started drinking mine as an excuse to avoid talking.
Well, I'm sorry, Miss Reddick, but I have a girlfriend, and I doubt she'd be pleased to hear that I danced with another girl.
Elisha shrugged and then turned towards me, the smile off her face now. She was all business. It was worth a try. Let me guess, you have a girlfriend too? Going immediately for me afterwards. And was Alexandria my girlfriend? I mean, she would be if we could be public about it. We never put an official label on it. I thought we did, but okay. I decided to take a diplomatic approach. I knew that Flate knew that Alexandria and I had been kind of a thing when she was allowed to go about Alcantra. I could reveal that safely. I don't, but I just had my heart broken by a girl, so, you know, not really feeling the whole dancing thing. Her hand somehow found my arm. And you're not looking for anyone to heal that broken heart? She took a sip of her drink, managing to make some pretty suggestive noises while doing so. Okay, someone really needs that? No, not yet. Thanks. Flate and I glanced at each other. Flate was doing his best to stifle a laugh. She was such a character, I decided I could loosen up a little. Didn't your mom just die? Nick! Oh, come on. Blade nearly spat out his drink. Elisha ignored him and made a face at me. What? My mom being dead means I'm not allowed to find love? I should just sit and pine forever like she did?
I mean, it was only a month ago.
Oh, I'm so tired of everyone being like this. She downed the rest of her drink. Are you alright, Elisha? Are you okay? Blah blah blah. It was nice of people the first couple of days, but yes, I'm fine. I'm alright. That hag never let me do anything. No boys, no parties, no nothing. Like, I'm finally free to do whatever, and people assume I'm too depressed to do anything. That really wasn't the response I was expecting. I felt bad now. You go, girl. Don't get me wrong, I was sad when she died, but like, I can't be sad forever. Life goes on. You know the whole shtick. I might as well start living, look at the bright side of things. Chasing boys wasn't something I could do before, but hey, now I can. So, here I am.
You really think you're going to find love here?
It's as good a place as any.
It's really not. No, I think she has a point. Why not start somewhere? I mean, although with what they said before that there were mostly old guys here, well.
And why is that?
No ambience, lots of old people, mediocre dining options. Nick's got a point. Not the place to fall in love.
And where's a good point to fall in love?
I thought about it. Somewhere with fireworks.
I was probably biased, though.
I wouldn't recommend falling in love. Not everyone can handle it.
Who broke his heart? My mom just died. I can probably handle it. I wasn't so sure. Elisha took out a notepad and pen from who knows where. You boys got any tips for my flirting? I'm pretty new to this. Flate and I looked at each other.
A little less aggressive? A conversation starter helps move things along.
Jokes are good.
Less desperation.
The dress works though. Pretty hot. Flade nearly spat out his drink again. I hoped you wouldn't tell Alexandria about that comment. Elisha jotted some things down. Thanks, boys. Appreciate the tips. Flade was looking at her like he was seeing her in a new light.
You know, I get it. Embracing freedom.
He sighed.
Wish I had some.
Was this in reference to growing up a thorn? Of course, I wasn't supposed to know details about the thorns, so I didn't say anything. Elisha took another shot at him, though. You tired of being chained down? You could be free with me, you know.
I don't think my girlfriend would approve of me expressing my personal freedom by cheating on her.
Elisha shrugged. Whatever, I guess you're a lost cause. She winked at me. If you ever change your mind, I'll be across the hall. She walked away. I was still thinking about Flade's comment. Alexandria had mentioned that her father had been very tough on him. I guess he wasn't as free as one should be either, even if his situation wasn't comparable to Alexandria's. Flade shook his head, watching Elisha flirt with a considerably older person now.
Strange girl. Anyway, Nick, it was nice meeting you.
He stuck his hand out. I shook it.
Hopefully it's not as flirtatious sounding, but...
He gestured at the ballroom.
I'll be around. Come say hi when you get bored. It'll be more fun for me than talking to these geezers about the logging economy.
Sure thing. I watched him head towards another table, and I went off to find Uncle Kyle, figuring that I'd better try and save him from whatever social situation he was suffering through. I thought back on my conversation with Flade. Could he be a murderer? I couldn't really tell from that. He didn't seem fake, as Alexandria had said he was. He seemed genuine about his disdain for what the Thorns did, and about wishing he had more freedom in his life. But he was very in control. Everything he said or did seemed to be calculated to an extent. His responses made him seem trustworthy and considerate, while also establishing that he was part of a different world than most. I guess that sort of conversational navigation came with the territory of being the heir to the Thorns. Yeah, it really is, like... Huh. Yeah, he really wasn't as unpleasant as I kind of expected, but it makes sense that if his family is so important that he's trying to really watch what he's saying. To an extent. Okay. I think based on the time I'm going to... Should I leave it here for today? I think so. I'm not sure how much longer this scene is going to keep on, but if we know that a whole murder will happen, then I think we still have a bit of a ways to go. So just in terms of time, I will stop here for today. I'm already a bit late, sorry. But yeah, very interesting. Many revelations, especially in terms of Victor, we got here. Again, that does make sense to me, that kind of purgatory thing. That at least makes sense of all the weird stuff going on in the 97 timeline. How it all fits together with the 87 one? Looks like we might find out soon, but we'll see. But yeah, that's it from me for today. As always, I'd appreciate if you'd let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.